After a long winter in the dry desert that is Las Vegas, spring is finally around the corner. That's good news for us, and even better news for our pets, or should I say, our furry, feathery, fuzzy, and sometimes slimy family members. So it's great to get out more, but maybe you have a dog that goes nuts around other dogs. Does your cat run out of the house and leave for days at a time? Maybe your animal has been sneezing or coughing lately, and you have no idea what's going on. Whatever the issue or joy or training you have questions about, you're a big part of our conversation today. We have a panel of experts ready to tackle your questions. Kelsey Peasy is communication manager with the Animal Foundation, the largest animal foundation in Las Vegas. Kelsey, welcome to State of Nevada.
Good morning. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
We're glad to have you. For those not familiar with the Animal Foundation, over the last year, the nonprofit has found close to 19,000 new homes for animals here in Southern Nevada. If you divide that number by a year, that averages to about 50 adoptions a day if you were open every single day. So I think we're all curious, how were homes found for all of these animals?
So a lot of people are interested in adopting here in the Las Vegas Valley, and so we're excited because adoptions have been consistent even through the pandemic, and a lot of those animals have stayed in their homes throughout the pandemic. But we use so many marketing strategies to get the word out about our animals, including social media. And we're just excited that people want to adopt and that these are great animals, and you can find so many types of animals here, not just dogs and cats, but pigs and rabbits and snakes.
Wonderful. I have a little Shih Tzu poodle mix. She was an adopted animal. And I'm always curious. She was actually found in a trash can. And they brought her into where we adopted her down in California. I wonder, where do a lot of the animals that you guys are receiving come from?
So these are animals that are lost, unwanted or abandoned. A lot of them do come in as strays or they're picked up through animal control. But sometimes they're sick or they're injured or part of a cruelty case. And the background, like you were saying, just like your dog, is really heartbreaking. But to see that happy ending and to see them thrive in their forever homes, there's really no feeling like it.
Yeah, our dog's definitely special. She gets the fresh meals every day, and she's spoiled. So if someone's looking to adopt from the Animal Foundation, a question that a lot of people have is, are the animals already spayed and neutered, or is this something that I'm going to have to come out of pocket for after I get my animal?
So if the animal isn't spayed or neutered, we'll give you a voucher so that you can either come back and get it spayed and neutered, or spayed or neutered, or go to one of our surgical partners. We have a lot of wonderful partners here in town that are also helping with that, with the spaying and neutering. So yeah, everything is covered, including the shots and vaccines and that sort of thing.
There's a lot of people who aren't necessarily ready for the responsibility of taking care of an animal full time. And maybe they opt into being a foster parent for an animal. Can you talk to us about kind of what it means to be a foster parent? Are there requirements for someone to do that? And how long does someone normally have an animal for?
So the Animal Foundation's foster program, it's really a lifeline for animals who might be having a hard time adjusting to life here in the shelter, or maybe they're trying to recover from an injury, or they just need time to grow. They're too small, they're too young to be adopted. And so foster homes really help the shelter prepare these pets for adoption, while also making, new space for new animals coming into the shelter. So it's a temporary home for these animals. And it's a great thing if you're not ready for the commitment and you're not sure. Maybe even you're not sure what kind of pet you're looking for. And so that's a great temporary option. And it can be anywhere from an afternoon to a few weeks. So we kind of have the time frame that will fit your schedule.
And if someone decides to foster an animal, maybe they realize that this is my soul pet. Are they able to keep that animal and maybe adopt it themselves?
Yeah, so we like to call that a foster fail, or, in my mind, a foster win, because they're where they were meant to be. And so the foster can adopt the animal if they want. And we saw that a lot during the pandemic when we placed hundreds of pets in foster homes. All these people thought it would be temporary, and then they realized, I can't live without this pet. And so then they ended up adopting them.
I want to jump on over to our phone lines. We have a question from Michael up in Summerlin. Michael, welcome to the program.
Hi, thanks for having me.
No problem. What's your question?
Well, we have a 2.5-year-old mini Australian Shepherd, and her name is Stella. And she normally barks at someone at the door, like a couple of barks, no big deal. But she has a tendency to, if she recognizes you, start to emit a maniacal series of machine gun, high-pitched love barks. We can only describe them as love barks because it's only with people she knows. And this goes on for like 2 minutes, and regardless of our efforts to try and sternly say no, or grab by the scruff of the neck, say no, she just looks at you with this crazy look of joy and a smile.
Michael, real quick, what does a love bark sound like?
It's really hard to describe. Picture the highest pitched bark you've ever heard, which sounds like torture. And every single head in the dog park turns and says, who's torturing that animal? And it's really just out of pure joy. So it's as high a pitch as you can possibly imagine.
Got it.
We haven't figured out a way to just approach this and maybe tone it down.
Well, I think this is a great opportunity for us to bring in master dog trainer Gregory. Gregory, welcome to State of Nevada. Welcome back.
Well, it's good to be back. Thank you so much.
What's your advice for Michael in Summerlin?
Hey, Michael, how you doing?
Hi.
Good. First question, Michael, comes out is it creating an issue? And what is the issue other than the fact that are you embarrassed when this happens, or how does this affect the family in a way that you feel like it needs to be changed or you'd like to stop it? Because it's kind of like when, if you ever saw this movie, Elf, and he sees Santa, and he's like, I know him. And that's your dog's joy there. They're expressing that, oh my God, I love this person, and I want to see this person, I want to talk to this person. Is it creating issues other than embarrassment?
Well, let's say it's mostly embarrassment. When it's like family members coming over for, a calm, dinner or something, and then this pup erupts into madness. We all know what it is, and I guess we're kind of accepting of it. Okay. And at the same time, we're like, maybe this should not be a real behavior to be encouraged.
What I could recommend is when you have company come over, start with your dog in a controlled situation. In other words, put your dog on the leash and collar.
Okay.
And that way your dog is close to you, and you can give them access as the behavior starts to change. So in other words, if they have the access to just run and make that introduction on their own, this behavior is going to continue. But if you teach them that, hey, you got to stay with me until you quit acting like that. And then when they quit acting like that, then you allow the introduction to happen. You should see a change little by little by little.
Every now and then we use treats to put her in a certain spot, like this is the spot, and you have to stay calm until you get the treat. I don't know if treats are a good thing to utilize there.
Sure, and mix it with the leash and the treats. So the leash stops the advance towards the people, and the treat rewards when the silence comes, and then the final reward is that they get to go meet the person that they wanted so bad to meet.
Michael, I hope that answers your question. Thank you so much for calling us. Now I have a caller, a Catherine from Las Vegas. Catherine, welcome to the program.
Hi, thank you.
Hi, what's your question?
My cat, she's been eating grass And I know dogs will sometimes eat grass if they have an upset stomach, but I've never seen her eat grass before. She doesn't throw up afterwards or anything. She just comes outside and starts eating grass.
Sounds like a grass diet. I think this is a great question for Dr. Shadi Ireifej. He's the Chief Medical Officer with Vet Triage. Dr. Ireifej, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me again. This is a pleasure.
Okay, what is your advice for Catherine in Las Vegas?
So there's probably two broad categories why animals in general are going to ingest grass. One is behavioral, curiosity, boredom, that sort of thing, maybe a stress reliever. The second is pathologic, usually related to nausea, upset tummies, things like that. So if there's no other clinical signs associated with this particular cat, then it seems more likely this cat is mostly doing this maybe out of boredom or curiosity. I would start there. Now, if this is a new behavior and you've had this cat for the majority of his or her life, then you wonder, has something changed in their current environment, in their social structure, that's going to affect their behavior to more of a stress or anxiety type situation? And if that's the case, try and pinpoint what that change was and alter that to try and improve this behavior. It's not necessarily that eating grass is a bad thing per se, but they do have herbicides and pesticides. And sometimes these vegetative ingestions can cause gastrointestinal upset themselves. So if you're able to pinpoint exactly what started this from a behavioral and environmental standpoint, then it's worth trying to stop it.
Catherine, I hope that answers your question. Thank you so much for calling in. Sandy from Las Vegas has an issue with a Chihuahua. Sandy, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. What's your question or your comment?
A little over a year and a half ago, I adopted a Chihuahua Terrier mix from the Animal Foundation. He's about 6, and he's been returned to the foundation before. I think I'm a third owner. And I think the reason why is he's very aggressive to other dogs. He's really loving and sweet, but around other dogs, he's very aggressive, barks, challenges them, tries to bite them. But it keeps me from going into many parks.
So I want to pose this question to Master Trainer Gregory, but first I want to ask Kelsey Peasy a question from the Animal Foundation. Kelsey, does this happen where maybe you guys get an animal that's brought into you and they get adopted out and they just don't really adjust to a home, so they sometimes have to come back?
Yeah, sometimes they do come back through no fault of the owner or the pet. It just might not be a right fit, and that's okay. There's no judgment there. A lot of the animals are strays. Most of the animals are strays, and so we just don't know their background and where they came from. Do they live with other kids or pets? And so obviously we want to be a resource for people to help resolve those issues and in her case, maybe find a trainer that could help with her dog.
Okay, let's turn this over to Master Trainer Gregory. What are your thoughts on what you heard from Sandy?
Once again, the first question that I would ask is it keeping you from being able to enjoy a certain aspect of your life that you would like to be able to do or you've done in the past, and then we construct the remedy around that? So is it that it's keeping you from having company, or is keeping you from going out to the park, and that's something you enjoy doing and you like to do?
Well, I do it regardless. I take him to parks because it makes him really happy, and he's wonderful until just perfect in the park until he sees another dog. So I have to circumvent the park or change my route so that he doesn't see many dogs, or I have to pick him up so that he doesn't go after a small dog.
Okay.
Big dog, small dog, doesn't matter.
Okay. Well, typically on something like this, I would only tell you that my recommendation is to find a trainer that specializes in aggressive behavior, because to try to help you with something like this over the phone, I wouldn't want to steer you in a direction that could make matters worse. Dealing with aggressive behavior is really more specific than saying it's coming from this particular incident and here's how we fix it. So those types of things can be fixed, and typically it's not that difficult of a fix, but definitely find somebody who has a background in dealing with aggressive dogs, and you should be able to get it done.
Sandy, thank you so much for calling in. Kelsey, I do want to jump over to you. In 2015, the Animal Foundation set a goal to reach zero euthanasia by the end of 2020. That's a really bold goal. One that we have a couple questions about. First off, did your organization end up achieving this goal? And if yes, how so?
So we did achieve the goal, which was to save the lives of all healthy and treatable animals. And there's a few programs really that we implemented that were crucial into achieving this goal. We every year, and it's going to be happening here in a few weeks, we receive a lot of kittens here at the Animal Foundation because it's kitten season. So we have a kitten nursery now, almost like a triage center where we're able to get them in quickly for treatment, find them foster homes that same day. And so that's, hundreds of kittens every year are saved that way. And we have enrichment and training programs for our, larger, harder to adopt dogs that might have behavioral issues. And there's just so many programs that have helped us achieve that goal.
With spring around the corner, I wonder what pets are popular to adopt kind of right now in this period.
So, right now would be a great time to adopt any animal, but obviously, as you were saying, a lot of people are out walking their dogs, and not only that, you're driving down the road and you see that dog hanging out the window, which is always a good feeling to see. And so, this is the perfect weather to get that dog and go for a walk or go up to Red Rock Canyon for a hike, enjoy a lunch. We're just seeing that adoptions are consistent.
Dr. Shadi Ireifej, for people who want to be very low maintenance, can you tell us what dogs or cats statistically have the least medical complications, or does it all vary?
It definitely varies. That's the easy answer to this. And I can't stress enough how much research you should invest in doing before you are looking for a particular breed of dog or cat with particular personality types and activity levels. You can make a pretty good judgment based on the breed itself, just based on genetic lineage, although that's not always going to be 100%, as each dog and cat individually is going to be different, just like you and I are individually different, even if we come from the same family. But most of the time, on average, you can try and predict the personality type of a pet based on that specific breed. Certainly, you have the obvious breeds of dogs that are very active. Hounds, for example, are a very common group of dogs that really need to be worked. And this is in comparison to ones who are a little bit more low-key. Your brachycephalics, your bulldogs and pugs tend to be a little bit more, I would say, relaxed. Although, again, I know there are folks out there who own these dogs that are shaking their heads saying, my pug is not relaxed at all. And so, yes, there's always going to be exceptions based on personality type. The big thing is really to match what your own lifestyle is like to that pet. Just because you want a specific breed of dog for whatever reason, or a cat for that matter, doesn't mean that's the breed that you should get to match your lifestyle. So if you have a fairly active lifestyle and you have time to work a pet, grab an active one. If you're more sedentary in your ways, don't adopt one that's fairly active.
Now, Doctor, I have a question from an Al from Las Vegas, and Al wants to know about what should be done about this person's dog. It's licking and biting its paws.
So most folks, when they describe these types of signs, they're thinking about allergies because it's so common, and that is common in our field. You want to make sure that you're ruling out something pathologic like allergies versus something more behavioral. So it's important to make sure that your pet does visit a veterinarian in person to take a look at the paws and overall behavior, overall physical exam, some basic diagnostics to make sure there's nothing more serious occurring here. If it is the bout of allergies, you can divide allergies into two broad categories. It's either environmental or dietary. And of course, you go down a whole pathway there in conjunction with your veterinarian to figure out what can you rule out, what can you do to try and specifically pinpoint the cause of this problem in terms of allergies, and then find specific treatment to attack that specific problem.
I have a Riley from Las Vegas who seems to be having a few cat issues in their home. Riley, welcome to State of Nevada.
Thank you so much for taking my call. I have an 11-year-old female and two 3-year-old male juvenile, and I've had all of them since they were babies. In the last few months, the boys have decided to corner her, and they attack her all the time. And I can't figure out what to do or what has caused this.
So what you're saying is the younger cats that you have in the house are attacking your senior cat.
Yes.
Okay. Dr. Ireifej, what are your thoughts?
I'm going to defer most of this to our master trainer, Gregory, here. For me, from a standpoint of what to do about it, it's either a matter of can you alleviate this through either behavioral training or pharmaceutical intervention, or is this just a bad living situation for all the cats involved and somebody needs to leave? But beyond that, I can add on to Gregory if there's anything else that needs to be added.
And Master Trainer Gregory, I know that you primarily work with dogs. Maybe just some thoughts that you have.
My response would be very, very similar to Dr. Shadi. You have to ask yourself that, are they meant to live together? Sometimes it's just not a good fit. And we're so busy trying to believe that we can force animals of the same species to live together. There's a belief that we can do that all dogs should get along, all cats should get along, all humans should get along. And we know that as humans, we don't all get along. We shouldn't all live in the same house. We might be best friends, but maybe we shouldn't live together.
You know, Kelsey Peasy with the Animal Foundation, I wonder if you run into instances with this where you have a cat who's been in the home a lot longer, and then maybe you get some young blood into the mix and they start to kind of create some problems in the home. My first thought is maybe it's time to find a different home for the younger cats, or maybe for the older cat.
Yeah, and there's no judgment if, you adopt a pet, like they were saying. Not all animals are going to get along, and if you have to return that pet because it's not a good fit, something that's really important when you do adopt is to properly stage that introduction. So when you're introducing your new pet to your current pet in your house. And so our counselors are wonderful in providing, those step-by-step instructions on how to make that happen.
Riley, Dr. Ireifej, yes?
I could add to that. I don't want to make it seem like having pets of different ages as a bad idea to be together. I have seen plenty of scenarios where the younger pet is actually trained easier with the older pet. The older pet will let that younger pet know kind of what's going on, how to behave in a proper environment. And also, I've also seen it where the younger pet, the newly adopted younger pet, helps invigorate the older pet, gives them more energy, almost like a new lease on life. So it's not to say that having pets of different age groups is a bad thing per se, but especially with cats, because they are not dogs. We all know cats have their own personality traits, and so that's why it makes this situation particularly difficult.
Riley, thank you so much for that call. Rick from Henderson, you have a question about a Labradoodle that you have. Go ahead.
Good morning.
Good morning. Hi.
I have a question. I have an 8-month-old Labradoodle, high-energy boy. We love him. But we're wondering when he should be neutered. I'm afraid to neuter him too soon before he's fully developed, but our vet is giving us 2 different messages as to what's the best time to neuter this guy. And a follow-up on that is, would that change his he's a very happily aggressive puppy. Would it change that aggressive behavior to have him neutered?
Okay, Dr. Ireifej, what are your thoughts?
This certainly is a matter of, shall I say, controversy in the veterinary field, because there are many opinions out there, not just from veterinarians, but also from breeders. And we need more research to figure this type of stuff out, especially what are the long-term effects of neutering a pet. We need more research. So in general, you are neutering them to prevent reproductive-related diseases as well as try to change certain behaviors. If you are happy with the current personality type of your pet, you want to make sure it doesn't change, it's a good rule of thumb to think, okay, well, by the time they're about 12 months of age, about a year of age, they're probably set in their ways, emotionally speaking, personality-wise, and so it's safe to neuter them around a year of age. However, there's also evidence that shows if you neuter them too young, let's say less than 8 weeks old, that they can have developmental problems in the short term and especially in the long term. So the bottom line is going to be to follow your veterinarian's recommendations, although as you can tell from your own situation, even that opinion can vary depending on the individual veterinarian and the individual hospital. I would say in your case, for example, 1 year of age is a good time to plan on neutering your male dog. The females are a bit different. The school of thought that I always had was spaying your female before their first heat will dramatically decrease the risk of having mammary cancer, breast cancer later on in life. That also has been challenged now where folks are saying you should wait till at least have 1 heat cycle prior to spaying. The jury's still out on that.
Rick, thank you so much for that call. We appreciate it. Dr. Shadi, I do have a question for you. I know a few Nevadans here who have desert tortoises, and they do hibernate during the winter. When do they normally wake up, and when should you be concerned if you don't see them?
You're definitely challenging my level of expertise in the animal field. I don't know the answer to that. I imagine it's going to be related to the exact species of tortoise that you're dealing with. I imagine there's going to be wide variations in terms of how long they hibernate, but that's about as close to an answer as I can give you on that topic.
Well, that's okay. I have another question from a Mickey in Vegas. Mickey says, I know friends who joke around about blowing marijuana smoke into their pets' faces. Is that dangerous?
This is a great question because marijuana is becoming more and more legal, and it's more and more popular now more than ever. The first question that I have to ask to that question is, what are the ethical considerations of performing that activity? The difference between dogs being exposed to any sort of external substance, drugs included, is that they don't have a choice in the matter. If they're being exposed to it, either it's malicious in intent or it's the dog's natural curiosity. But people who partake in such activities are choosing to do so. Therefore, you are also simultaneously accepting the effects, both good and bad, of such exposure. The dog does not have a say in that. So number one is the ethical considerations of that would suggest that it's inappropriate to do such. Secondly, fortunately, there is a wide safety margin when it comes to marijuana toxicosis in dogs. It takes a lot of marijuana ingestion, especially, to make it where there is a potentially lethal or life-threatening situation. That being said, like any other toxicity, individual variation can also affect what usually happens. You could have a dog that is exposed to a small amount of marijuana, but have an exaggerated response to it. And by exaggerated, I mean more and more life-threatening. Thirdly, the effects of marijuana on people, like I said before, are expected. A dog that's undergoing the same effects, because they will go through the same phases, is not as much fun for the dog as it is for the person. The dog does not know why it's experiencing this, and therefore their stress levels, their anxiety levels are going to increase because of it. That being said, inhaling any sort of chemical, let's say irritant, can cause airway disease, coughing especially, and that also is something we try to refrain from in dogs as well. So I hope that answers the question.
Oh, and Master Trainer Gregory, yes?
Doctor, this great answer on that. Also, like to know about CBDs, and is it the same basic rule of thumb?
The literature is still coming out on CBD and THC products in dogs and cats. We are seeing mostly anecdotal evidence, I shouldn't say evidence, anecdotal information stating that there are huge benefits, positive benefits to dogs and cats that are treated with CBD for a variety of conditions, everything from chronic pain associated with arthritis to seizure activity to behavior, stress. So we are definitely seeing that CBD is helping dogs and cats anecdotally, and the research is supporting that to some degree, but we need more research to come out on that. You can tell also that there's a need for this type of product because there is a multitude of companies out there now selling these products, and although we don't know exact doses and appropriate frequencies to administer these products, there does seem to be a need for it, a want for it in the community, and we are seeing medical evidence both in research and anecdotally that show there is positive benefits to this.
Now, Master Trainer Gregory, we only have about 30 seconds for this last answer. It's from a Vanessa in Las Vegas. She adopted a dog in a tough situation. Now the dog's become very aggressive to her husband. What should someone do if they find dogs are having issues with male or female counterparts?
You need to really get somebody in ASAP. Until then, One of the things you would ask yourself is the dog protecting you in a believed situation from your husband? Is it a situation to where the dog is trying to claim you as its own person? So you're going to really need professional help. Please don't take this lightly at all, because somebody can get hurt.
And I have appeared together in academic conferences and presentations, and though we have important points of ideological and personal departure, we often find ourselves on the same side of critical issues of policy and pedagogy.
Engaging ideas at the core is exactly what we're supposed to be doing. And I think it's often, as you say, we're working with students, and it's always important, I think, for us